So good evening to everybody out there. We are so happy to have all of you join us on this Sutapa'S studio chat. And now I'll just hand over the mic to Geeta.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining from whichever part of the world you are in, India, Singapore, the US, UK, or any other part of the world. This is a very special evening for me, as well as a privilege, I must say, to have a conversation with an author I greatly admire, Sutapa Basu, or Sutapa D, as I'm used to addressing her. So I'm going to take a few minutes to actually introduce her, and you'll have to bear with me because her bio is something which I cannot but have you understand her and know her in detail. Sutapa Basu is a best-selling, award-winning author as well as an educationist, a poet, a translator, and a writing coach. She studied at Shanti Niketan and holds a postgraduate degree in English literature as well as a bachelor's degree in education. Her professional life of 32 years includes work as an educational faculty and creative writing teacher. As a publishing professional that spans about 25 years, she has designed and supervised publishing of more than 400 titles. Her historical novel, The Curse of Nader Shah, won the Best Fiction Award by Author Awards 2020, instituted by JK Papers and the Times of India. She is the 2016 first prize winner of the Times of India Write India campaign by Amish Tripathi, while her debut, a psychological thriller, Dangle, was nominated for the Anupam Kher Award for Best Debut English Novel in 2017. In 2021, she received an award for excellence in publishing by the Public Diplomacy Forum. In 2023, her book, The Birth of My Nation, was nominated for Best Young Adult Book by Author Awards and Valley of Words Book Awards. Well, that's just a bit of her credentials. I'm not for more credentials of hers. I'm going to later on share with you her website because this is the shortest or the most brief or concise version I could make out of it. She is also well known for her best-selling historical fiction Padmavati, The Queen Tells Her Own Story. Her second historical fiction initiated the Invader series with The Legend of Genghis Khan, and it continued with The Curse of Nader Shah. Two of her anthology of short stories was published in 2020, and two books, The Cursed Inheritance, a mystery adventure, and Princesses, Monsters, and Magical Creatures, the English translation from Bengali of the iconic Thakurmar Jhuli, were released. All her books were published by Readomania Publishers. Sutapa also coaches children, young adults, and aspiring authors in creative writing skills at Sutapa Studio. Recently, an anthology, Love Can Kill and Other Stories, authored by the mentees of Sutapa Studio, has been released. So that is, in a nutshell, Sutapa Basu. I am so excited and delighted this evening to actually have this conversation with her and also have this opportunity to share a lot of her journey, her thought process with a much wider audience, many of whom are my friends who are going to be joining in today. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Geeta. I mean, of course, that is the work that I've done, but all the compliments you added were a little exaggerated. But thank you so much. And now let me tell you something about my friend here. Geeta Balagangadharan is a theatre and film personality. Her debut on stage was with the Singapore-based play acting drama center production called Ticket to Bollywood. And over the last 10 years, she has worked in 8 or more of their productions. Her extensive body of work spans across comedy, drama, melodrama, and socially relevant productions. She was one of the contingent team members who performed at the Women Economic Forum, The Hague, at the Netherlands in 2017. In 2019, Geeta made her film debut in the Tamil segment of the Shilpa Krishnan Shukla directed award winning anthology Katha at 8. She was then seen in the 2021 Malayalam film Nilambari. In 2022, Geeta was seen in Grand Sugar Daddy, which was screened at Berlin's European Film Market. Geeta has not limited herself just to acting on stage and screen. She even writes film scripts and as a director too. Her debut film as writer director, Sous Chef, is in post production. So let's wait for that. Geeta's forte is that she's multilingual. She has performed in English, Malayalam, and Tamil productions. She speaks Hindi too. Her other interests are dancing, painting, and of course, reading books. Geeta espouses women empowerment initiatives and has created videos for championwomen.org. Her other avatar is being a management professional and consultant. She mainly consults the payment and travel industry. Originally from Chennai, Geeta now lives in Singapore with her teenage daughter. So now it's all over to you, Geeta.
Thank you. Actually, it's possibly the first time I'm hearing someone read my bio, and I must say, I've sort of taken. I have to step back and say, okay, that seems quite interesting about myself. I'm hearing that about myself. Thank you so much, Sutapa'S. Thank you so much. So I am ready to ask my questions, and I think also are the people who have joined us. Four historical fictions, two thrillers, one non-fiction, one children's literature, two anthologies, four academic books, two regular podcasts, features in multiple national newspaper. How do you do this? Like, because the genres change, the stories change, the way of storytelling has to change. How do you manage this? What's your thought process?
So, Geeta, the thing is, this is that I have always wanted to be a writer. I mean, ever since I was a child, I was always a voracious reader. And it was my dream that what if I could write like those authors who were my favorite authors, and people would read me. And I used to write, but I never wrote, I never thought that anybody would be able to would publish my writing. It was only in 2014 that I thought that if I don't attempt to publish my stories or whatever I write now, it will never happen. So I was already working at Encyclopedia Britannica, and I was a publishing director. So it was quite a senior post, and I never found time basically to write, sit down and write seriously. So I took a sabbatical. I just dropped my job and decided that let me try my hand at writing. And of course, it was tough because there were many doubts. I did not know whether I could write something that was worthwhile. I was not sure whether anybody would ever publish it. And finally, I was not sure whether anybody would spend money to buy my books. But right at that time is when a Write India campaign happened, and I submitted my entry just like so many others. I think some 8,000 entries went in for the first one, which was Amish Tripathi's prompt.
Yeah.
And I was completely surprised. I just dropped from my chair when I heard that I had won the first prize. I kept telling my friends that no, it's some other Sutapa who must have won it, not me. Till the Times of India actually informed me, that yes, you are the one who has won the prize. So that gave me a great boost. That really gave me the confidence that people like what I write, and I can, I definitely should attempt to. And within a few months, I finished my first book, that was a debut, which is Dangle. And then Dangle went on to win again a debut book. It was nominated for the best debut book by Anupam Kher, debut book awards. And then a few years down the line, I got the best fiction award from Arthur Awards. And then, I think these were all the instigators to incentives for me, and I kept writing. But the real reason I write is I love writing. It's like I must write.
Yeah. So, but then it's interesting. Absolutely. I understand where you come from, and it's quite interesting that you decided to drop your job, and that itself is a big decision, and then to put that into writing. But when you write across so many genres, it's pretty much like when you're writing one book after the other. So you've started only in 2014, but you have quite a body of work in that time. It's less than 10 years, and you have quite a considerable amount of body of work. So isn't that each time like a reset, reboot, like delete, like all delete, reset, and then reboot all over again? So have there been any times where you felt I can't do this anymore. It's like, I'm facing a kind of a block. I'm not able to progress.
So what you're basically saying is that do I face how do I manage what is commonly known
Writer's
as block?
writer's block. Yeah,
Writer's block.
writer's block.
So, Geeta, what happens is that even definitely for my historical novels, but also for other books, I have to do a lot of research. So if I'm ever hit by the writer's block, what I do is I shift my focus onto research. So I am, reading, or I am browsing the internet, or I'm visiting libraries. So I
Yeah,
use that time generally to read, to research. So I'm still connected with,
yeah.
whichever book I'm writing, but I'm not actually writing it. And at the same time, I must add this, that uh, I have given myself a kind of schedule or a discipline that I must write every day. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
so whether I'm writing a blog, or I'm writing a Facebook post, or I'm writing a chapter, I try my best to write every day. Number one, and if I'm writing a book, I'm very much into the in the midst of writing a book. I usually give myself a chapter a day kind of deadline. So I try to finish one chapter every day,
Okay.
because I believe that writing is just like any other job. You need to
Yeah.
have deadlines, you need to have discipline. I mean, I don't know, I don't feel writing can be a hobby. It needs
Hmm.
to be taken seriously.
That's interesting. But for many, writing would be a hobby rather than something which you would take as something as a task, as a job, as part of a calendar, right? But it's very interesting that you say, normally people say I need to read every day or every night before going to bed or something. But and as some people, you do journal, you'll do write a page of a journal, but to actually have a target like write a chapter a day, that is a lot more discipline. It requires a lot more prep, I would guess, isn't it, in terms of preparation
I
work?
do read. I mean, I also read, so I do have a time which I give for reading, because I think reading and writing need to go together.
Exactly, correct,
Yeah.
that's true. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you was this: author, educationist, writing coach. Okay, you're juggling multiple hats, and each of these hats, in its own way, complement or complementary to each other. So, which one of it do you find more challenging or most challenging?
The most challenging of these roles is the educationist role. So, as an educationist, I also, develop and create series, basically, on different subject areas, which are usually taught in schools. So it could be English
Mhm.
language, it could be general knowledge, or it could be social studies, or it could be environmental science, or something that is also for life skills nowadays. So I usually have to create. I have created quite a few series.
Okay.
Uh, why it is challenging is that here it's not just creativity. I need to be very careful of the pedagogical techniques that I need to put in. And in schools, you don't write one book. So you have to write a series, which means you have to write for students of class 1 to students of class 8. So it's a series where the content is graded across each level. So obviously, a lot of thought, a lot of a lot of study, a lot of learning needs to go into it when I create my educational series. So I
Mhm.
feel that is more challenging. But I think anything that I write, there has to be, in fact, there has to be some challenge in it. And
Yeah.
you just brought up the fact that why is it that I am writing? I have written in so many different genres, like historical novels, children's literature, non-fiction,
Yeah.
anthologies. Because you see, every genre you write has a parameter, and when you sort of bring your creativity into that parameter and apply the techniques that are necessary to keep within that genre, you are refining your own craft. So I love the challenge which comes there, in that.
Very true. which actually leads me to my next question, because while you write across genres, you are, I've noticed that you're carving a very nice niche for yourself, writing historical novels. And I've been lucky that I've got to read many of them. Why historical novels, whether it is Padmavati, Curse of Nadir Shah, or Genghis Khan? I haven't read Parvati Bai, but I will get there very soon, I'm sure. But why historical novels? What excites you about that?
Two things. One is I'm very passionate about history. And in fact, my favorite reading genres is historical novels and, of course, thrillers.
Hmm.
So history has always, incentivized me. It has always made me very. I always wanted to know more. Made me very curious,
Yeah.
inquisitive. And the most important thing why I'm passionate about history is because history is alive. A lot of people think that history is in the past, history is dead or is about dead people, but that's not true.
True.
History is actually all around us. And if we want to understand what is happening all around us, the present events, we need to know the background to it, we need to know the history of it.
True.
So that is why I always tell people, never think that history is something that we can do away with. I mean, even if you're doing a subject like science, it's not humanities. Even if you're doing a subject like science, if you pick up any of the theories, any of the scientific theories, you
Yeah.
need to go back to
True.
what scientists have told about it. So you're going back to history, right? So
Agreed.
history is very important for anything that we want to get knowledge on, and that is why I'm so passionate about it. And I think through my historical novels, what I try to do is pull people into history, make them more interested in history,
Yeah.
and so I would like to sort of promote the fact that history is something that we definitely cannot ignore.
You're absolutely right about that. Because, see, for me personally, history was never my favorite subject. I never did well in history until I think at some point in time we had a history teacher in school. This was when in Chennai, in Church Park. I studied in Church Park in Chennai. And we had this fabulous history teacher whose diction and the way she would teach history was fabulous. It was like it was like seeing the wars and the battles in front of us. Her voice modulation, the way she did it, it made us. As you rightly said, it draws you in. It draws the reader in, and that is one thing about your books. And for the people who are watching, if you have not read Sutapa Basu's books, please do pick up her historical novels. You will not regret it, because what I love about your books is the imagery you create for us. There's this it's like seeing a visual, it's like seeing a film in front of our eyes while we are reading the book. That's how beautifully you write. Whether it is you're talking about Padmavati or you're talking about Genghis Khan, whatever it be, the way you describe the setting, the surroundings, we actually can. It's like as though we are transported to that place, and that's what I find got me hooked onto that to your books. And I think that's very important for any person who writes, like to hook the reader in, to bring them in, to rein them in, and to bring them into that point where you can't put that book down. So yeah, absolutely, I think you're absolutely right. When history is shared, in a very relatable, but at the same time a very very visual imagery model, it stays with you. So I'm really excited to read Parvati Bai, because Battle of Panipat was something that is, even today in history class, that's one thing I still have I've forgotten what I did in graduation, but I remember Battle of Panipat. So I'm interested to read what about Parvati Bai, that's for sure. So I also, but while, and this is now, no, so I'm coming to a little bit of a contradiction here, right? So my next question. So here you've been writing historical novels, and the historical novels have got a lot of drama. When I say drama, I'm putting it very broadly, but there's a lot more emotion. There's a lot of the war, the battle, the unknown stories, so many parts of it. However, when you started many, many years ago, you actually studied at Shanti Niketan, a much more contrast environment in a way. to what you today, to most of the historical novels that you write. And where the focus, I'm guessing it's more the Guru Shishya Parampara, and then you have, it's more personal, it's more intellectual development, personal development, a different version of what in the modern world we call it the IB way of teaching, right? Uh, how did those formative years influence you, probably early or later, as a writer? Like, how early did you start writing? That's possibly would be a second part of my question. How early was that Shanti Niketan and then the writing part of it?
So you just spoke about the imagery of my writing, and coming from you, who actually is working with the visual, art. I really love it that you feel that the imagery is so beautiful. But I would say that a lot of that, that imagery has come from my years in Shantiniketan. Firstly, I am very much, I love Tagore, and I love his lyrics and his poetry and his dramas as well as his stories.
Yeah.
So, what I noticed, I was a teenager then, and I think the most impressionable age. What I noticed in Shantiniketan, by then I had already heard a lot of Tagore music because my parents used to sing Tagore
Hmm.
songs. I grew up hearing Tagore a lot, and they would also stage a lot of Tagore plays.
Yeah.
So grew up with a lot of Tagore. So when I was there at Shantiniketan, let me tell you one small incident. Early morning, we would go for our classes. Of course, I was there for the college. I was doing my literature honors, the English literature honors over there. As I would walk to my classes, it was all inside the campus, so we could just walk into our classes. I would walk to my classes. On the way, I would often come across this group of children sitting under the trees and
Mhm.
having a music class. So they're
Hmm.
singing, right? And it was beautiful hearing those young voices,
Yeah.
they're open to the blue skies actually. And what I noticed is they would be singing a Tagore song, and in that song, the lyrics of Tagore is usually if it's about a season, he would describe the season. The nature in that season, flowers and birds and butterflies. That's what his lyrics are all about. And Gita, I would see those same flowers blooming. So they would always sing the song of the season that we were going through, and that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
If they were singing about say jasmine, I would see the jasmine actually blooming on the bushes around them. And that is what brought in, I think, this love for visuals,
Hmm.
because I felt that when you can if I want my readers to imagine, to really bring them in, I have to give them that kind of description. So, to a great extent, yes, Tagore was a great influence on me. And Shantiniketan, with its intellectual, so much intellectual work coming to me,
Yeah.
watching his plays, listening to his music, it was a beautiful experience. And I
Yeah.
think it was the most important part of my life. I
Yeah.
mean, I still go back to it. They in Shantiniketan, the song, the university or the institute song says that you carry Shantiniketan in your heart always. The
Always.
strings of the lute are always strung to Shantiniketan, and that is what happens to all of us. Anybody who has studied there says the same thing.
But I'm possibly second guessing this or putting my own interpretation. It's possible also because of that you're able to actually move between genres because you're able to do children's literature. So that's a different way of talking because when you're writing a children's story, it has to be narrated in a different fashion. Then you're doing a fiction, then you're doing a thriller, then you're doing a non-fiction, then you're doing education related. So I think that could be that the whole, as you rightly said, that foundation that you've had to actually that imagery part of it sort of puts it into different compartments, makes it possibly that's also part of that process, is my guess. Because otherwise, I've read many of your books, and I just that's always been, I always share that even with Sangamitra. I always tell her the same thing, that writing is just it hooks you. So while you so now I know that there are many aspiring, like, on this FB live, we'll be having a lot of audience who are aspiring, a lot of possibly parents, children. I'm unaware what the audience would be mixed, but I'm guessing they're there. And what I'm trying to know from you is, and I have other questions more related to the books, but I'll come to that, is when you're writing, or when people are writing, when writers are writing, what are those watchouts? What should young writers be not be disappointed by, or what are some of those watchouts one has to have to say that I should not go into that path, or those, like, how do you operate? Are there any gut instincts that you operate on, or is it something that you feel, okay, you've learned along the way that let me not walk that path, let me bring my thoughts back in? How do you do that, bring it back into focus?
So the first advice that I would give to aspiring writers is be emotionally connected to what you're writing. Because only when you are emotionally connected will the authenticity of whatever you're writing come through in your writing and will convince the reader. So when we are writing, what is our aim? Our aim is that readers should read us, should hear our voice. And that voice will only come through when you are emotionally connected to whatever you're writing, even if it's something which is non-fiction. I mean, even if you're writing something that is motivational, self-help book, you have to be emotionally connected to it.
True.
And that is what will bring in that, that feeling to a reader that whatever I'm reading, the writer has written it for me.
Yep.
That's actually what you would want your reader to always feel, that, I'm writing for you. Because after all, what is writing? It's a conversation between a writer and a reader. The connect must be there.
The connect should be there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the most important thing. You just said that what is it that we should not, we should avoid. So
Avoid. Yeah.
yeah, so especially if you're a debut writer, I would always advise that write what you know, which means if you have certain genres that you like to read, write, start writing on those genres. The reason is you have read enough on it, so you know how that genre works, right? But sometimes what writers do is they are more focused. Um, Maybe they're not wrong, but they're more focused on whether my book is going to sell or whether my story is going to sell. And they
True.
look at the market and they say, okay, romances are the ones which are popular. Everybody's picking up a romance. So even if romance may not be your favorite genre, you decide to write a romance. Maybe
Mm.
your favorite genre is a thriller. What happens is you don't write a good romance when you could have written a very good thriller.
Very good.
Right.
True.
So listen to your heart, listen to your gut instinct, and write that.
Okay.
Just
That's
recently, my Sutapa studio mentee, one of them, she has written a book which is in the first person POV, which means she's writing as I.
Mhm.
It's a imaginary story, but she just called me just a day back and she said that, Shutapa, a lot of readers are coming back to me and asking me, is this your story? Because she's written about a relationship. So is this your story? Is this a relationship you've gone through? And she said,
Right.
why do I have to keep telling people, no, it's not?
Right.
So she asked me that, do you think I should not write in the first person POV?
First person.
So I said, no, if you are comfortable writing in first person POV, just go ahead. And this is something, in fact, a lot of women writers also get back to me. I mean, I have heard my friends who are writers and who are women, they also say that if they write certain explicit scenes in their books, a lot of people get this kind of a question, is it your own experience?
Mm.
Somehow, I don't know why this happens mostly with women. I don't think any of the male writers ask this question, is this your experience? But
Yeah.
so
True.
I would
That's
say
it.
that don't just don't bother about that.
Don't
If
bother
you
about it.
feel you should write it, go ahead and write it. After all, your persona as a writer is different from your persona as a person who is interacting with everybody else.
Yes, absolutely. And for all of you who have joined and are watching, so there's some incredible tips that Sutapa Basu is sharing here, and I think very relevant. about going with your gut instinct, going with your core, like what you are expert at, or what is that, what is your area of specialization, rather than going in with the popular demand, or what is the in thing, so to speak. What When you write, because ultimately you're investing your emotions into that writing, in whatever form you're writing, there's a lot of your knowledge that you are sharing, your research that you are sharing, and your research automatically becomes much more enriched in a subject that you are much more invested in. Which brings me to my next question. Your books are incredibly researched. Anyone who reads your books will catch that on immediately, right? And I know Sutapa Studio. It is you are having you are nurture I mean you're giving a mentorship program for young writers and people who wanted to go into the path of creative writing. And I'm interested to understand, what is that process, very broadly. What is that program like? What is that process? And uh, and then I'll come back to, I have some questions on that research, again, deep diving a bit on research work. But my first question would be related to this mentorship program, would be, how does that process work?
So, like I explained to my mentees right at the beginning, creativity is not something that can be taught. Creativity is something that is there inside you. You
Mm,
can't really teach that. But what you can teach are the techniques which
mm,
will enhance your creativity.
yeah.
So, if you want to write and you want to write a book or a story or whatever, a non-fiction, whatever you may want to write, essays, you creativity is inside you. That will come out only when you know the techniques that are required for writing. So that is what Shutapa Studio actually explains or disseminates that knowledge. What are the techniques of writing?
Right.
It's an open space, and not there are no lectures as such. Everything is done through discussions. Usually, I there are different kinds of courses or workshops that Shutapa Studio conducts, depending on the age, depending on how what is the duration that the participants want.
Yeah.
So there are short workshops of maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, which are for children. I take a lot of workshops in schools
Hmm.
where the students are there, and I take a 2 or 3 hour workshop, which is completely based on activities. So as the children do the activities, they learn. Uh, I also do a lot of short author talks
Hmm.
about writing techniques. The other thing that I do, which is where this book, Love Can Kill, this is the
Ah,
book which has just been released. So this was through a 12-week course
mhm.
where there is only one class a week, but there are a lot of assignments and activities that happen over the week. So every class, we first discuss whatever assignment has been given. So the mentees would read it out, or they will discuss it, or they will ask questions on it if they found something difficult. And
Right.
it's completely a conference kind of a thing where the feedback or the remarks or the comments are made by the other participants.
Ah,
So I try to give them the experience of whatever you're writing, if when it is read by somebody else, what is their take on it.
right.
And I
Okay.
think that works beautifully, because when they get the comments, not from me always, but from the other participants, they
Yeah.
realize, okay, this is the part that I need to work more on, or this is the
Correct.
part which really, happened very well and it has
Yeah.
come through and it's showing through. So that is the way it works. So you have enough space for ideating, enough space for discussions, and then applying whatever has been disseminated during that discussion. I just want
That's
to show you the logo, because so this is the logo. I don't know if you can see it properly. Yeah, so you can see the dragonfly on it.
Yes. Why? That's very interesting. The dragonfly. Why the dragonfly?
So the dragonfly is a symbol of free spirit. of intellectual freedom. And that is what I believe that Sutapa Studio aims to give to all its mentees. Just open your imagination, open your creativity, open your mind. And
Lovely.
when you do that, all the ideas will drop in. Because I tell them, story ideas are all around you. All you need to do is open your mind to it.
Yes, absolutely. And this 12-week course that you mentioned, which is assignment based, is that online? That's an online program, is it?
Yes, I mean this one, the one which love can kill.
Yeah.
So this, all the mentees, it was online. In fact,
Okay.
I had people from London joining in. I had people from Bangalore joining in, and from Goa. So they all joined in for the online course, and so all the stories that they wrote over that 12 week are there in this book.
Right. That's nice. So for everyone joining in from Singapore, the good news is that Sutapa'S is coming to Singapore. She'll be there for quite some time. I think the entire month of February, she's in Singapore.
Yes.
We do intend to have a book read of her latest book, Parvati Bai, as well as have a kind of sessions for children on creative writing. More details to follow. We will share more details on the same. Yeah, Parvati Bai. There you go. So we will share that with you. So coming back to so I have a couple of other questions, and it's about your research. Again, I'm going back to your research work. Well, not so much research. When you research, I do know that you actually travel to many of these locations where it was the historical places, right? And I always wondered, when you are there, have you ever felt, one of those, because you mentioned emotional connect with the character, right? Any surreal experiences, anything that, because sometimes it happens, right? Subconsciously, when you go to a place and you're completely emotionally invested in a story, whether it's a drama, whether it's a story, there's something that happens when you walk into that space. Sometimes you yourself are unaware of some of those experiences till it happens. So, any of those experiences that you had?
Absolutely. In fact, it surprised me how much I felt. Let me talk about Padmavati.
Okay.
Padmavati was published in 2017, but even today it sells like hotcakes.
Mm.
And possibly the reason is because I'm really emotionally connected to the entire story, the historical figure, the personality, as well as the place where it took place. So
Mm.
I went to Chittorgarh, I went into the fort, and you will not believe it. When I came to the place, the tunnel where the
Mm.
Johar actually took
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
I got this eerie feeling, as though there was somebody there. The tunnel is closed. There is a rock because apparently, snakes were coming out of it. So they've closed the place. But that entire place, you just stand in front of that tunnel and you feel, you get a feeling. I mean, I really got that. That was one. That was something that I felt at Chittorgarh. The other thing in Chittorgarh, there's a place which is the Johar Kund.
Mm.
So the entire Kund was actually in a particular place near the palace, near the main palace. Right now, the Archaeological Survey of India, they had dug up that place and they did find skeletons. They found jewelry inside that place, and they have taken it all away, of course, and they have kept it in their own, the archives, and they
Yeah.
have filled up that place, and they've made a lawn on it. There's a lawn there. There's a small kund where every year there is a kind of aarti or whatever done there.
Right.
So I just went there and I just sat there for some time. And I was trying to imagine, I closed my eyes and I was trying to imagine the women who
Yeah.
had voluntarily committed Johar there.
Mm.
And you will not believe it, Geeta. I just closed my eyes and I just felt their presence. I mean, you cannot but feel it when you sit there.
Yeah.
After all, so many women would have, perished in that kund. So definitely, I feel this surreal feeling whenever I go to these places. And another strange thing, let me tell you, the main palace is
Oh.
completely in ruins. So you can see the rooms, but they are all, like uh, 6 inches kind of divisions of
Mm.
walls. There are no walls. There's only one thing standing. And do you know what that is? That is Mirabai's room. It's still standing.
Really?
Yes. And of course, the guide tells you because it's Mirabai and her faith, that is the reason. But it is a strange thing that the entire palace is demolished. But and this room is on a slightly higher inside the palace, but it is on a slightly higher ground. And then the palace is, I mean, a kind of small room is there, and that is Mirabai's room. And how did it survive over so many years?
Yes,
It's
yeah.
really strange. The
Well,
other
yeah.
thing, let's look. You were talking about the Battle of Panipat.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So the battle of I went to Panipat, to the site of that battle, and I don't know if you know, more than 1 lakh people died there, and they were not all soldiers because a lot of pilgrims had accompanied the Maratha army. So there were women, there were children, there were uh, old men, priests who died at that spot because they were massacred by the
Yep.
Afghans. So now it's a beautiful garden, and it's called the Kala Amb Park.
Okay.
So as I was walking, it had these tall Ashoka trees and eucalyptus trees, and it was spring, so I could hear the breeze moving through them. Again, I just felt there was some kind of murmuring happening through that breeze. I don't know, maybe it was the spirits of these people because I was going to write about them
Yeah.
and I wanted to feel them. So that kind of emotional connect is what I get when I visit these places.
Mm.
And I believe that that comes into my writing. It has to, because
It
I
has,
feel it so much, so it comes into my writing. And I think that is what also hooks my readers, or they feel the same thing. They feel the same emotions.
actually, I completely agree with you because each of your books that I've read, and I've read this, I think I must have read about three of them. Yeah, I have. I've yet to read Cursed Inheritance, but the others that I've read, it comes through. It is at every point in time. Each page that you turn, you can see, the way that you've thought through the characters, the characterization, the way that you have written about them. There is so much of depth. So it's not very it's not just frivolous or just going through it. There's a lot of depth, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of detailing, there's a lot of love. When I say love, it's not just that way, and that's what comes through in your writing. So yes, so now that part, and I just noticed that we're about 3/4 into the hour, so possibly I'm just going to take a minute more and then open it up for for any audience questions. um, what have you now after Parati Bai? What's next?
So as I said that I've got a lot of projects. Some of them I'm working on, some of them I'm thinking about, because I really need to think about anything that I'm writing. It takes me at least 1 or 2 months to just think about it. How I want the story to proceed, and then of course the research comes in,
Yeah.
because that again takes about 4 to 5 months to research on, and then I actually start writing. So there are a lot of projects that are there on the anvil. But as I said, I'm always looking to write in a different genre so that I can refine my craft. I can be a better writer. I hope so. And, be able to hook my readers,
The
be able
readers.
to satisfy my readers,
Yeah.
give them something that they really enjoy the reading.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you said, so it's interesting. So it's like you you identify your character, and then you have 4 to 5 months of the principal character you want to write about, and or the theme you want to write about. You have about 4 to 5 months of research work that you do, and then you start to write end to end. How much time does it take for you to, let's say, complete your writing before it then goes into a more like first draft and publishing mode?
So the first draft takes a lot of time. See, first is, as I said, the ideating. Like you
Hmm.
just said, that I will develop my characters in my mind.
Hmm.
I will develop the storyline, the plot in my
Yeah.
mind. I will also bring in the setting. What are the settings that I want to use for my story? Then once I've decided that, only then I can start researching because I know now what is it that I want. So I will go
Yeah.
into research, which means a lot of books I'll read. I will read up blogs. I will browse the net. I will go
Mhm.
into the libraries, take a look at the archives. I will visit the place, the site.
Yeah.
So these are the generally that. So I take about 3 or 4 months to research, and then I will sit down to write my first draft. The
Mm.
first draft takes a lot of time, say about definitely 4 to 5 months to complete a first draft. And I would never even give my enemy to read my first draft because it's all over the place. So, because I just write what comes at that time. Then
Mm.
I will do a second draft, then I'll do a third draft, and I will do a fourth draft. At least four drafts, definitely. And then I will give my fourth draft, which I feel I have done my best work, to
Mm.
a beta reader. So I
Oh,
have, yeah, so it's usually an author friend or somebody else who will read it like a reader
yeah.
and get back to me with a lot of feedback on how I can improve, where is it that I need to improve. And so I will then apply all that feedback. And that becomes probably my final draft, which I will submit to the publisher. And then, of
Lovely.
course, there are about 3 to 3 months or 2 to 3 months of editorial procedures happening. So the editor will send me back the proofs, and I will go through the proofs. And she or he will find out certain things which maybe should not be there or should be there. So I again do that, and then we come to the cover design, and then we decide that okay, this is what we're going to do, and it goes for printing. And my publisher says, "Where is your marketing plan?" So I can't let go. So I have to now have a marketing plan. So that is something I have to discuss with my publisher, and we sit down and decide how we are going to launch the book, when we are going to launch it, and
Yeah.
what is going to be the marketing plan, what is going to be the promotional plans that we will be doing. And here I must say something: when we do research, we get a huge pile of data.
Yeah.
All of it cannot be used in the book because I have to focus on my story and just take what is necessary for the story.
Yeah.
What I do is any interesting things that I discover, trivia I discover, I keep it aside in a file and I use it to promote the story. So I use
Interesting. Smart.
marketing plan. I will make posts of it or I will write a blog on it. And so I use it at that time. So some of my research is kept for the marketing or the promotional campaigns that I do for my book.
That's interesting. So I think it's very, I mean, I know that I have a lot more, I have a lot more questions, but I'm going to keep that for the time that we have together when you come to Singapore. But for our audiences, I think let's take a couple of questions from the audience. I'm sure there must be quite a bit of it.
So here is a question which has come.
Yeah. How do you,
Sangamitra, yeah, she says, how do you retain the authenticity of language and culture when writing against the backdrop of an Indian community? This is very important. And I think it has been most important when I was writing Parvati Bai, because I needed to go into the Maratha community of the 17th century, which means I really needed to do the research on the culture and to bring in the atmosphere of the place, the region, the
yeah.
history. I used a lot of Marathi. Marathi spoken then, not Marathi spoken now. Not only that, apparently the Marathi spoken in Pune, which is the setting of Parvati Bai, is very different from the Marathi that is spoken maybe in Mumbai or other places. So what I did is after I finished doing it, I did my internet research and I got the words and I put it in all. I sent it to a person, a Marathi person, who completely validated and gave me feedback on what is right and what is wrong. So of the Marathi language or the Marathi nuances that I had used, the cultural nuances that I had used, maybe the cuisine, maybe the dress, maybe the weapons. So it gave me the feedback, and let me tell you, that person to whom I got the feedback from, the validation from, was in the US.
Ah,
So so from there he sent me everything, and I have mentioned in the book itself that it was invaluable because I couldn't get it wrong. If if a Marathi would be reading it and say, "Oh my God, look what has she written," I
Yeah.
can't possibly get it wrong. So that is how I will apply the authenticity of the culture and the language. It's not just research. I take a lot of feedback from people who know the language, know the culture. For Genghis Khan, I went to a student at JNU who is a student of he's doing Mongol studies, and he
Yeah.
knows Mongolian. So I had to go to him, and he gave me the feedback on the language, on the culture, and so on. So I consistently use the regional language, whether it
Yeah.
is Mongolian,
Yeah.
whether it's Persian for Nadesha, or it's Rajasthani, of spoken at that time for Padmavati, and Marathi. I have
Yeah.
used, and Bengali for the cursed inheritance.
So, but this is a very, very valid question. I think not only for in books, it also comes when we do films, stories, which are when we're writing stories, which, for example, when you're making a story, let's say, or remaking a story into Chinese or Malay or any other language, to make sure that you're being authentic to that language and to the culture and to the lifestyle of that community of that period, however it is. So it's a very extremely relevant question.
And
Thank you.
Tanya Mukherjee says, very interesting story about the Johar and the Kun. Thank you, Tanya. Here's another comment. Okay. Looking forward to getting a copy of the signed book in February. Absolutely, Aparna.
Yes, so am
I'm
I.
looking forward to meeting all of you.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions coming in?
Not as yet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something. Okay, that's Kaveri Chatterjee who says, do you agree that most fiction writing is autobiographical at the core, as in the writer reaches into their own experiences and background to draw inspiration?
Very
Absolutely.
interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Very, very right. Because you see, as I just told you, it was my emotions when I went to Chittorgarh, which have come forth in Padmavati. My emotions when I went to Panipat, which has come forth in Parvati Bai. At the same time, I want to add this here because I do write about these women who are historical personalities. So I try to find their voice. I try to find out what is it that was in these women that has made them sometimes create history, sometimes change history.
Yeah.
And if you think about the times in which they lived, very patriarchal times, where women did not really have any voice, at
Yeah.
that time, they have made their presence felt and they have earned their niche in history. So, what is it in their personality? And here again, I want to say something. This is what Geeta said, that she always found history very boring when she was studying it in school. Uh, because we only read about events, we only read about names, we only read about dates. We did not know who is the person behind that name. Why did that person do what he or she did? And through my books, I that is what I try to bring to the reader. I try to make the person human,
Human.
bring that person alive. At the same time, when I write about the difficulties and the crises that they had to undergo and how they overcame them, I think it also gives people like us, readers in this modern world, which has so many facilities for us. Life is
Yeah.
so much more easier today, and yet we sometimes crib about the few difficulties that we have to undergo. If you read these what these people had to overcome, you feel inspired. Okay, what we are undergoing is nothing as compared to what they have undergone. So that is another reason that I like to bring alive their experiences, and through them my voice. Oh, there's one more question. uh, how have the protagonists of your books changed the way you think about the world? Very much. Sushila, because I just told you that when I read about what they had to face and what they had to fight against, struggle against, and what they overcame, it gives me a lot of inspiration for my own life.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered your question, Sushila.
I think it gives you more perspective, isn't it? As you research and understand, there is
Absolutely.
more, yeah, there's more perspective into the why, the whys and the whats, and yeah, what was those. I mean, you may not still not agree to many things that they have done, or to the action, but still it gives you a perspective, a
So there's
different view.
somebody with
Yeah.
another question, Parul. Parul says, in current times, which personality would you write about or for? Okay, so I have to think about that. In the modern times, whom would I like to write about? Um I don't know, maybe our present president of India. I think she has undergone a lot of struggles in her own life. So I would love to write about the Draupadi. I'm sure it'll be very interesting, her life, and very inspirational.
Inspirational, true. Yeah.
Would you like to wrap up now, Geeta?
Yes.
I can answer all your questions on Facebook. So once this talk is done,
Yes.
I'm going to answer your questions. So you can keep putting up your questions on the Facebook, and I will answer them and reply to them. Would you
Yeah.
like to?
I
Yeah.
think for me, this has been a it's been a session which I take away a lot of learnings myself. And I think a lot of it also, which I can apply as I write some of the stories. Like sometimes you just you're just making a tagline or a log line and then you develop on it. But a lot of nuggets that you've shared today, I think has a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of notes that I've taken. You would have noticed me scribbling away. So, which of course I will have the advantage of meeting you in Singapore. So, for everyone logging in from Singapore, Sutapa'S is in Singapore the entire month of February. We will be organizing a book read and some other sessions with her, more group sessions with her. And do reach out to me if you'd like to have some creative workshop sessions or any thoughts that you have. More than welcome. We are still in the ideation stage of how to maximize that visit of hers. Of course, she's coming for vacation, but I think I'm going to keep her a little bit more busier. So, but thank you so much. And there will be for the young adults who are here. We would be looking at a creative writing workshop for you, and more details to follow on that. And thank you so much, Sudhapadi, because I think it has been a wonderful time talking to you. I've had the advantage of reading many of your books. You do so much. There is so much that you do, outside of writing, and it is quite inspirational in terms of, I think somewhere what we did discuss about and what is very relevant is possibly your time management. So that is something we will have that chat over tea someday. But as a wrap up, I would say that we're looking forward to that signed copy of Parvati Bai. All the best for it, that release, and yes, next meeting in Singapore at possibly a book read. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Geeta. You've
Thanks.
been, I mean, you've been a great friend, I would say, on this FB Live. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to coming to Singapore. And for me, writing or books or anything to do with books is vacation. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody at Singapore. I mean, I can see your names over there, and I would love to meet you in person. So do come over for whatever events we are planning. Geeta is
Sure.
planning for us. And thank you so much, everyone, this evening for being with us, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and good night. Thank you for joining us rather late in the evening too on a working day. So thank you so much. Much appreciated. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Take care and have a good evening.